Hello everybody, welcome back to What Culture Wrestling, and straight away we need to talk about something because it's something that you guys and gals all in the comment section below you're very concerned with, so I'm going to talk about it. Yes, I know it's heartbreaking, okay, and it beats me up, it eats away at me each and every week, but we still haven't found Adam Cleary. I don't know where he is. He was kidnapped in the night, and I'm yet to see him since, and it hurts me. It hurts me as much as it hurts you. I don't know what to do. If anyone's seen him, if anyone's got any information as to where Bad Cleary is, just let me know. But for now, we have to struggle on, and we do have to talk about this week's NXT, this week's Black and Gold show. And by howdy, we had a lot of stuff to talk about, because we had the next batch of men's Dusty Rhodes Classic matches, we had the opening round of the women's Dusty Rhodes Classic matches, we had a few squashes, and there was a fight pit. Oh yeah, a big old fight pit at the end of the show. So there's no time to just sit here and faff and talk about nonsense. I am here, I am Gareth from What Culture Wrestling, here to talk to you about all of NXT's ups and downs. So straight away at the start of the show, we had like a little recap video package hyping up the Dusty Rhodes Classic and the fight pit, and as you can tell, I got really hyped. We then got our first look at the fight pit, which was obviously going to come later in the night. It was just this lovely cage, which obviously it was last time, but this time it had like intense lighting, and it was like next to the ring. It wasn't really involved with the ring itself. It felt special. I got that big fight feeling. But our first official match of the night was obviously not the fight pit. It was a tag team encounter, a Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic Cup competition thing match between Leon Ruff and Kushida. They were paired together against The Way's Johnny Gargano and Austin Theory. And straight away, this entire match and the stuff that it means going forward gets a nice big up. But also on top of this, it's like an extra like mini up. Beth Phoenix came back. She was back on commentary. She's obviously been on commentary, but from home. They've like kind of beamed her voice in over the last couple of weeks, couple of months during this entire crazy situation that we're going through right now. And it was just lovely seeing her back. So yeah, good stuff. But obviously over the last couple of weeks, Gargano has been involved with the likes of Kushida and Leon Ruff. There's just had like a crazy ass program where Leon Ruff won the North American Championship at some point. Now Kushida seems like he's in the running for that belt. And early on in this match, it was looking like Leon Ruff and Kushida kind of had Gargano and Theory's number. Because of course the Way were just being really cocky, and every time they got a little bit carried away and they seemed to get in a decent bit of offense and just start like posing and being really smarmy, Leon Ruff and Kushida, they found a way back in. Also, as a bit of a sidebar in this, I really think that we need to do something with Leon Ruff and Austin Theory as like a program going forward, because they just work so well. Because you've got like Austin Theory, who's this big hulking kind of super strong athletic smarmy prick, and then you got Leon Ruff, who's just this lovable underdog, but he's like really slight and really small. It's David versus Goliath, and I just think they make some magic together. And speaking of making magic, there was obviously a moment in this match where Johnny Gargano and Austin Theory got in the ring together and they did their lovely no-look high-five thing, and it made me chuckle. It made me chuckle a little bit, not as much as some of the other things have over the last couple of weeks. So we're going to bring that Gargano meter up, going to pop it there. We're going to give it a 48%, which I know sounds a bit low, but it was funny. It just wasn't kind of splitting my sides, making me throw up kind of funny, which I don't know why would be funny. That was weird. But despite working well together as a team, obviously The Way, Johnny Gargano and Austin Theory, there was a moment where Kushida flew into this match. He started doing all of his handspring stuff, his handspring kind of back elbow, handspring kick thing, and they did like a spinning DDT to Gargano on the outside of the ring, and my jaw just dropped. And then The Way tried to fight themselves back into this match, but they just could not put away Leon Ruff or Kushida. And then Ruff ran a bit of interference. He kind of pushed Theory onto the outside, and then Kushida nailed Johnny Gargano with like a fisherman suplex, but he like put one of his arms behind his back, so it was like a hand-tied fisherman suplex, and they got the victory. So Kushida has now pinned Johnny Gargano on 2 occasions. He's looking like a clear contender for the North American Championship going forward, which if you watch these ups and downs, I am so here for that match. Just give it to me. Leon Ruff and Kushida, they're in the next round of the Dusty Classic, and The Way seem to have lost theirs. Very interesting. Bear with me. Yes, my delivery guy chose this moment in the middle of recording this video to deliver something I've been waiting a few weeks for. But it's fine, because we are finally yellow. Next up, we had a Pete Dunne promo video thing where he was pretty much saying that he is going to take the torch. It's going to be passed on to him, the torch that Finn Balor has had for so long. He left NXT. Pete Dunne made it the thing that it is today, and he wants that belt, so give it to him. We were then told on commentary that Kyle O'Reilly obviously busted up his jaw last week because of Pete Dunne and the Kings of NXT. but somehow he'd been medically cleared despite aggravating an injury, which didn't make him medically clear last week. It was confusing, but I'm glad he's back. Then we had Malcolm Bivens backstage, and you know what? Colour me yellow and intrigued. Because he said he had an important thing, him and Tyler Rust had an important thing that they needed to say, they had to say it to William Regal and present it to him. But then Tyler Rust came out of the office of Regal and he was like, yeah, I've already spoken to him, man, I've got a match with Bronson Reed. Which Bivens kind of reacted like any normal person on planet Earth would react. He was like, well, I wouldn't normally suggest going asking for that because Bronson Reed's a scary dude. But that match is going to happen later on tonight, and you can kind of see where Bivens is coming from when we get there. Next up we had Karrion Kross, and he was returning. He was in his first match since he absolutely battered Damian Priest at New Year's Evil, and it's getting up. Obviously, you know how much I love his entrance, so that's just its own thing unto itself. It just fills me with all kinds of incredible good feelings and makes me just want to scream and go rah. But that hurts my throat, so I shouldn't do it. But he was involved in a very small, short match here with Ashante Adonis. He murdered him with like a suplex, and then 2 Saito suplexes, and then his time's up forearm thing to the back of the head. He then attacked his tag partner after the match, and Karrion Kross is a badass, but you knew that already. So obviously it's a great thing seeing Karrion Kross pulverize a dude, because that's just always fun to watch. But I feel like this is maybe the last time we could do this for some time now, because he needs another big scalp. He needs another Damian Priest or just a big name to put him back in title contendership. He wants that belt off Finn Balor. In my opinion, give him somebody like Adam Cole. They'd have incredible matches. I think Adam Cole can eat the loss at this point because he's the longest reigning NXT champion in history. It's not really going to affect him. So give me that. But if you do give me another squash, I'm not really going to argue because Karrion Kross will eat me. Right, now after this, we just had one of the weirdest kind of starts to a promo video I think I've ever seen. Because MSK, Nash, Carter, and Wesley were sat backstage. It was like, oh, this is the video that's going to show us everything we need to know about MSK. And then Nash Carter just kind of turns to Wesley and goes, yes, we're #1 tag team, great. And literally the look that Wesley gave Nash Carter in that moment was the exact same look that I was giving my screen. I was like, why are you doing this? But then they both kind of got in on the act and they were like, nice, great team. So MSK are apparently Borat in NXT. I don't know. Then obviously after this, it showed off everything that they did last week in their kind of debut match in NXT. Ember Moon was like, yeah, this team are really good. They are really good. Some would say they're nice. What is happening? Then after this, we have Mercedes Martinez and Toni Storm. They were backstage and they were like, right, we're facing off against Caden Carter and Casey Catanzaro tonight. That is happening. They might be best friends. We're not best friends. We're really, really good at beating people and beating them up. That's going to be more effective than being best friends. They make a good point, to be honest, yeah. Then we had our second Dusty Rhodes Classic match of the day, of the night, of the time when it happened, and unfortunately it's gonna get a little down. Now I am no means slamming the actual in-ring action that went down here between the Lucha House Party and Imperium, because it was exactly what you'd want from these kind of teams. You had Lucha House Party who were just flipping and flying all around the place, and Imperium were doing everything in their power to ground them and pummel them into the mat. And hell, there were a few moments in this match when my jaw literally just dropped off. It felt like it ran down the street, went dancing in the snow because it's very snowy where I am right now, and in fact there were a few moments in this match which were literally mind-boggling. It was like my head was in that boggle game and it was just going like this, because Grand Metalik did like a top rope moonsault thing. He did it once in the ring, did another, like assisted by Lince Dorado, outside of the ring. It was chaos. Grand Metalik should not be able to do these things. But in the end, Lince Dorado just absolutely nailed Martel in the face with a super kick, and then he hit him with the shooting star press, and the Lucha House Party beat former NXT Tag Team Champions in this moment. These epic two people, fair and square. They are now moving into the next round of the Dusty Rhodes Classic. Now, I love Lucha House Party, and I think they've been great on NXT since they've arrived back on the scene. They've been allowed to spread their wings, which is exactly what you want from your luchadors. But I just think in the grand scheme of things, this is really detrimental to Imperium. They've not had much momentum since losing the tag belts, obviously, last year, and I just don't know where they go now on NXT. Obviously, there was the big reveal. Alexander Wolf returned after the match, and he kind of just stood there, and he was like, right, and the other two were like, right. So Does that mean now we're going to have a trio? But what other trio are they going to take on in NXT right now? Are they just going to go to war with the Undisputed Era again? Maybe. But in my personal opinion, I'd take them back to NXT UK. They've got all that star power now, the eyes on them that they've had on the kind of American version of NXT. Take that back to the UK, join back up with Walter, and just be dominant SOBs for a couple of months and rebuild all that aura. After this, we had a little clip backstage. We had the weigh-in for the Fight Pit, which was obviously coming in the main event. And you had Tommaso Ciampa, he stood there and he was like, right, that's how much I weigh. Timothy Thatcher, he arrived and he was like, right, this is how much I weigh. They both, like over 200 pounds, kind of heavy guys. And then obviously they started shoving. And Regal was like, no, save it for the Fight Pit. After this, we had almost the opening ceremony, if you like it, of the Women's Dusty Road Tag Team Classic. We had William Regal stood there and he was like, right, I'm bringing out a Hall of Famer now to talk about this, to talk about the first ever Women's Dusty Road Classic. And it was Beth Phoenix. Obviously, she had returned that night. She kind of bigged up NXT and just its impact, let's say, into the women's evolution as a whole. And it was really nice. It felt big. It felt like a big, huge thing, a moment in the women's evolution going forward. And just looking at the field, looking at the people who were involved in the various teams and the matches that were incoming, I just got a feeling this could be something special. And I was right to feel that way because, my God, I really enjoyed this match. Obviously, the match in question was Kacy Catanzaro and Kaden Carter taking on Toni Storm and Mercedes Martinez. And it felt like the main narrative here was that we had this odd couple, this kind of team of experienced badasses taking on the team that actually is a team, is a kind of well-oiled machine at this point, but they maybe aren't as experienced as the people opposite them. Straight away, we had some really nice chain wrestling between Toni Storm and Kaden Carter, which I really enjoyed. It was just really smooth, and it showed how far Kaden Carter's come as a performer and just how good Toni Storm still is. We then had some lovely tag team offense from Carter and Catanzaro, where they did like an in-sync dropkick thing between the ropes, and it was looking really good for them for a moment. But then Mercedes Martinez got herself into the match, and she did like a deadlift suplex thing where she like turned that into a power slam, and it just made me chuckle. This person was recently in Retribution, and it was looking like a career maybe going towards, let's say, an unsavory path, and now she's just whooping ass on NXT. You gotta love it. Also, side note, Kacy Catanzaro plays a beaten up underdog just as good as anybody, that tells you. And then things got ramped up another 50 notches in the closing stages because chaos just got let loose. Kaden Carter went crazy. She did like a drop kick, which turned into like a splash. She like did twisted in midair, did a drop kick on Martinez, splashed onto Toni Storm. Kacy Catanzaro then jumped over the top rope onto Martinez, doing like a little corkscrew thing. I couldn't keep up. My mouth, my brain, everything was just dropping everywhere. And then Io Shirai arrived on the scene and attacked Mercedes Martinez because obviously she attacked her a couple of weeks back, and everything was just looking nuts. But then amid the chaos, Toni Storm was thrown onto the floor by Kaden Carter, and Kacy Catanzaro hit a move that had so many twists, so many turns, it was like watching Game of Thrones before it went crap. And because of that, it doesn't just get an up, this entire match and this entire thing that went down, it gets yellow highlighter up. Highlighter drop. At the end of the day, it was a wise idea to give the team, who actually are a team, the win in the tag team tournament. And then the nature of the defeat for Toni Storm and Mercedes Martinez obviously being cost the match by Io Shirai, the NXT Women's Champion. They've obviously had their dealings with her recently. It just made sense. We're going to go down a nice path with them. We're going to go down a different path with the best friends who won here in this situation. It was all good stuff. Also, just another little sidebar here. Wade Barrett's picks in both of his matches tonight, he had Imperium and Toni Storm and Mercedes Martinez. They both lost. So if you want to Wade Barrett's picks in the future, I got some bad news for you. You're probably gonna lose. We then had a riled up Finn Balor backstage. He went straight into William Regal's office and he was like, "Oi, Regal, I want to beat up the kings of NXT, Oney Lorcan and Danny Burch. I want them before I get Pete Dunne." And he was like, "Right, you can have that match, but you need a partner." And he was like, "Don't have many friends." Which is a bit sad. We then had Bronson Reed arrive on the scene. He was walking towards the ring because he had a match next against Tyler Rust. And then Isaiah Swerve Scott turned up and you couldn't really see what they were talking about. But then a few segments later, we did get to see what he was talking about. And it was pretty much Swerve Scott saying, "Hey, don't get involved in my business." Which I wouldn't advise saying that to Bronson Reed. He's a big guy. We then had some breaking news because Ashante Adonis is now out of his match on Friday, the Dusty Rhodes Classic match. He can't compete in that match because he got absolutely obliterated from Karrion Kross. And then Kaden Carter and Kacy Catanzaro were just running around backstage like two giddy best friends because they won. They proved everybody wrong. And you know what? Yeah, do you? After this, we did finally get that match between Tyler Rust and Bronson Reed, and it gets an up. Because as you'd likely expect, Bronson Reed absolutely bulldozed his way through Tyler Rust very early on, and there was a moment where he got knocked out of the ring, just absolutely flung out, and Malcolm Bivens turned to his protege, his colleague, and just said, outsmart him. But obviously being told to outsmart somebody and, actually doing it are two very different things. But Tyler Rust found a way to do it for a little spell because he isolated the left elbow of Bronson Reed. Bronson Reed was kind of walking around like, damn, that really hurt my elbow what he did there. And then it was looking like maybe there was an opening for Tyler Rust because he hit him with like a top rope or second rope, I'm not sure where it was, Samoan drop. So good move for Rust. But bad move in the whole kind of scheme of things because Bronson Reed was very angry about this and proceeded to murder him and hit him with a big tsunami splash for the win. Tyler Rust should not pick his battles. And if the conversation after the match is anything to go by, it's looking like Malcolm Bivens is going to be the guy to choose Tyler Rust's battles going forward, which, judging from how this went, is a wise choice. We then saw Finn Balor backstage yet again. He was being interviewed by Mackenzie Mitchell, and she was like, well, you need a partner. Who are you going to get? And he was like, no, just a couple of guys who owe me a favor. Balor then walked into a room with the Undisputed Era, just kind of stood around talking, and he was like, the Cap wants some payback. Who wants to join me? Kyle, do you want to join me, or are you still sucking food through a straw? And for some reason, Roderick Strong was just really offended by this. He was like, you don't call my friend who's hurt his jaw, you're saying that he's sucked food through a straw. And I was just like, chill, dude, it happens. But then Kyle O'Reilly was like, yep, I'm in, I've been medically cleared, even though I've hurt my jaw a little bit more. I'm up for this match, let's do it. And then the pair just kind of stared at each other like, I respect you, I fear you, there's a lot going on. But of course, I'm very excited for that match. Obviously, Lorcan and Birch, the NXT Tag Team Champions, taking on Balor and O'Reilly. Obviously, that's going to be interesting chemistry. Give it an up. Then after this, really quickly, we had the Cruiserweight Champion, the NXT Cruiserweight Champion, Santos Escobar. He came down to the ring and pretty much just ragged on every other NXT champion. He said he was better than Gargano, he's better than Balor, he's better than Karrion Kross, even though he doesn't have a belt anymore, but he says he was better than him when he was the champion because he didn't even defend it. And it was just looking like your typical really brash, cocky promo. But then the Lucha House Party arrived on the scene. They attacked Legado del Fantasma because they're going to face them in the next round of the Dusty Classic next week. And they quickly kind of got outnumbered by the 3-on-2 situation thing that was going down. But then Kurt Stallion, you remember him, he arrived on the scene and he just like blindsided Santos Escobar, threw him down off like the turnbuckle top rope area, and it was Lucha House Party and Kurt Stallion in the ring, stood there like, oh, that's what you get for attacking me in the car park, the most dangerous place in all of NXT. And later on in the night, it was announced that Kurt Stallion is going to be taking on Santos Escobar next week for the Cruiserweight belt. I'm very, very intrigued. It felt a little bit contrived the way we got there, but we did get there, so we're getting up. We then had Killian Dane and Drake Maverick. They were backstage talking about the fact that they won their first round Dusty Classic match. I think it was on 205 Live. And Drake Maverick just cut this really heartfelt promo about the fact that he's got a friend now coming into 2021. Things are going to be different for him. This is his year. His best buddy and him are going to win the gold. They're going to win everything. And Killian Dane was just like, yeah, this guy's really good at cutting promos. See you next week. And finally, the moment you've all been waiting for. I know that's the worst announcer voice ever, but that was kind of the feel of this moment. It was the fight pit. It felt like a huge, big fight moment. We had the dramatic lighting. We had the announcer going, fight pit! It just felt special. Everything down to just the way they walked into the ring. You had Tommaso Ciampa and Timothy Thatcher. They like walked into the steps. It was like they were walking into the octagon. You were just like, God, this feels intense. It feels legit. And I have to admit, it did start a little bit slowly. The pair of them just kind of punched each other and just got really methodical, let's say, on that top kind of corridor, walkway, if you want to call that, in the fight pit. And it all led to a moment where Ciampa got Thatcher stuck in the rail and then slingshotted him up. I'm never going to do that move again. And then we went to a picture-in-picture break. And it was during this little kind of break advertising moment where we saw in the little box that Ciampa and Thatcher moved into the pit. And I was a bit like, oh, that's a bit anticlimactic. That's normally a huge moment in the fight pit when you go from that top level to the bottom level. But they just give it away on picture-in-picture. Great. But it was as the match moved down into the pit area where Timothy Thatcher seemed to come into his own. He started just using that grappling prowess, really keeping Thatcher stuck to that mat, which is apparently, according to the people on commentary, it's harder than your usual mat, and things got physical. Thatcher used the fence to assist him with a suplex. He then locked in a Kimura and just started yanking on it. That's one thing you can always guarantee in these fight pits: the submissions, for whatever reason, just look a lot more brutal. And I don't know whether it is just being on that lower level, but Thatcher just felt like a different person. As soon as he dropped down there, he just got really sadistic. He started putting Champa in sleepers, but Champa was not done by a long shot. Because as Champa was caught in that sleeper hold, he just blatantly low blowed Timothy Thatcher right in the knackers, and then Thatcher was draped over the ref, so Champa got Thatcher in a Willow's Bell over the ref. It was like a ref-assisted Willow's Bell. I thought it was really inventive. But this seemed to only succeed in just pissing Thatcher off, because then the two just traded like sleepers. There was like a sleeper fest, but not that kind of sleeper fest where you fall asleep. It was sleepers where people get choked out. And then this all led to one of the most inventive, creative, innovative submissions I've seen in quite a long time, because Timothy Thatcher got Ciampa's leg just caught in the fence. He caught it up in the side of the cage. It was his surgically repaired knee. He lodged that in, got the other leg round his neck, and he was just yanking on it. And this all led to Ciampa tapping out. He tapped out to Timothy Thatcher in the fight pit. He is your winner. He is the fight pit champion. Now, I will admit this maybe wasn't quite on the same level as the first fight pit, because I'll be honest, that one was the first of its kind. It was bloody, it was brutal. Timothy Thatcher lost some teeth. It just had a little bit of everything. But take nothing away from this match, because it was still brutal. Some of the submissions just looked sickening. And if you've ever been in a Kimura or a leg lock or a knee bar or anything like that, you'll know some of those moves genuinely hurt. And then after the match, we had Timothy Thatcher walk on over to Ciampa, and he kind of slumped to his knees. Thatcher was holding his neck and his arms and his knees because everything hurt, and it was like a flip of what we saw after TakeOver, their TakeOver match, when obviously they stared at each other, but Ciampa had won that one. This time Thatcher had won, so you can sense there's going to be another match, a rubber match, but I don't get how you raise the stakes from Fight Pit, because what do you do next? Fight Shark Tank? Fight Dungeon? I don't know. Let me know in the comment section below how we raised these stakes, but overall, it was a good match. You're getting up. And those have been your ups and downs for this week's NXT. Let me know what you think of all of them in the comment section below. If you agree, great. If you don't, equally great. You do you, my friend. That is the way of the world. I have been Gareth from What Culture Wrestling. Don't forget to go on Twitter, follow myself at gmorgan04, follow everybody here at What Culture WWE. Let me know if you've seen Adam Cleary. I know I've not spoken about him for the last couple of weeks. It's just been so hard. I'm a human being too, okay? But we are Yellow. We are NXT. We will keep fighting on, and I will see you very, very soon. That got dramatic.